green exotic tobacco located at 63 Martin Street in the village of Potsdam. At the time of the search warrant, there was no one present, and the charges are still pending. Seized at that location was 23 grams psilocybin, 29 ounces of cannabis, 1,1386 grams of concentrated cannabis, 7,689 flavored nicotine vapes. Third location, Ash Exotics, located at 1 Market Street in the village of Potsdam. Arrested was Musad Munor Abdumali from Syracuse for criminal sale of cannabis in the 3rd degree, class A misdemeanor, selling to persons under the age of 21. Also, criminal possession of cannabis in the 2nd degree, class E felony, and unlawful sale of cannabis, 2 counts, which are violations. Seized at that location was 3.5 pounds of cannabis, 124 grams of concentrated cannabis, 5,283 nicotine flavored vapes, also $6,883 in U.S. currency. Fourth search warrant, Famous A's, located at 157 Center Street, which is in the village of Messina. Arrested was Thunder C. Anderson of Owensburg, and Julian E. Jacobs from Messina. Both were charged with criminal possession of cannabis in the 2nd degree, class E felony, and criminal possession of cannabis 3rd degree, class A misdemeanor. Seized at that operation was 42 pounds of cannabis, 5,707 grams of concentrated cannabis, 767 flavored nicotine vapes, $1,616 were confiscated. Fifth search warrant, THC Remedies, located at 6 Beach Street, which is in the village of Messina. Arrested was Joshua Charette of Fraser Falls, and Justin L. DeShane of Messina. Both were charged with criminal possession of cannabis in the 3rd degree, class A misdemeanor, criminal possession of cannabis 2nd degree, a class E felony. Seized at the location, 13.8 pounds of cannabis, 857 grams of concentrated cannabis, and 114 flavored nicotine vapes. Also, $3,161 U.S. currency. Number 6, Exit 420, located at 101 East Main Street, which is in the village of Governor. Arrested was Jamal Mazab from Auburn, New York, for criminal possession, cannabis in the 3rd degree, 2 counts, which both are A misdemeanors. Seized at that location, 225 grams of concentrated cannabis, 27 ounces of cannabis, and 1,140 flavored nicotine vapes. Also, $5,289 U.S. currency. 7, Canton Tobacco Shop, located at 39 Main Street, which is in the village of Canton. Arrested was Ahmad L. Wayal from Garland, Texas, for criminal possession of a controlled substance in the 5th degree, class D felony, criminal sale of cannabis in the 3rd degree, class A misdemeanor, selling to persons under the age of 21. Seized at that location, 35 grams of psilocybin candy bars, 108 grams of concentrated cannabis, 48 ounces of kratom, and 1,185 flavored nicotine vapes, also $255 U.S. currency. Totals for all 7 locations: psilocybin, 66 grams, concentrated cannabis, 12,316 grams, that equals 27 pounds. Cannabis, 63.2 pounds. Flavored nicotine vapes, 18,368. The total of U.S. currency was $37,513. It's important to note, psilocybin is a hallucinogen that is a controlled substance which is illegal, possess or sell. It causes dangerous hallucinations that can be very, very dangerous to the citizens. All the concentrated cannabis seized was a combination of cannabis vape, pens, wax, and edibles. All subjects that were arrested were either issued an appearance ticket or arraigned and released for future court dates. Investigation is ongoing and further arrests and charges are pending. At this time, I'd like to make a few statements about this operation. First, illegal dangerous substances are in some of these products being sold in these establishments. With no oversight, it will continue to endanger the citizens of St. Lawrence County and the surrounding counties. Second, unlicensed marijuana shops being operated in this county for several months. It's been going on for a long time, too long. Marijuana laws were established with certain procedures to follow to open these shops. All of those procedures at times are time consuming to meet these business persons that are following the laws, rules, and procedures. It's a fair factor. They're spending an enormous amount of money for permits, licenses, building renovation, as well as many other things to establish a lawful business with oversight from the state of New York. Whether you support the New York State plan to permit the use of sale of marijuana is of the utmost importance to enforce the laws and rules that regulate these sales. We must arrest and prosecute these individuals that establish these illegal and unlicensed smoke shops which endanger our communities. And third, and probably the most important, protection of our minors. Selling these substances to minors. We have received several complaints from citizens, parents, and school officials of reports of these illegal sales of marijuana and these substances to minors. We sent in some operatives, underage operatives, where several transactions of sales to these minors occurred. This simply won't be tolerated. We as a law enforcement community behind me will not tolerate these dangerous substances being sold in this county, that laws are not followed and sales to underage individuals are conducted. This is why this investigation was conducted and this operation deployed. And now I'd like to turn it over to DA Pasquale.
Thanks, Sheriff. First and foremost, I want to thank all the law enforcement agencies that were involved in this operation for everything that they did yesterday, and they were able to pull off a large-scale operation safely and efficiently, which is the most important thing. Secondly, the sheriff went through a list of charges and individuals who have been charged at this point, and there may be more coming. Just to be clear, those individuals are innocent until proven guilty. These are just arrests at this point. The most important thing I think that I can stress is, this operation, this isn't about necessarily just marijuana and whether you agree or disagree with the laws that have been passed here in New York. This is about the totality of what was happening in these stores, as the sheriff mentioned. This is about controlled substances and hallucinogenic being sold in these stores. This is about them being sold to children in our communities. That is why this was so important. These stores were operating with no oversight and selling basically to whoever they wanted to. And if you look at some of the products that we have here on display, they're almost marketed for children. They look like candy. They look like things children should be buying. We have complaints from community members that their children, high school age, middle school age, are coming home with vapes. And if you look at what we took from these stores, these vapes not only contain nicotine, but they also contain marijuana. And that just will not be tolerated. As the sheriff said, one of these stores was only 400 feet from a local school. When you have businesses that are not going to operate within the law and sell to children, it's a no-go in this county and across the state. And law enforcement will not tolerate it. This will probably not be the last time this will have to happen, because I don't know how many of these places will be up and running again. But it's not an issue that's going to go away unless they go about the proper way to do things. The New York State passed these laws, but they also put oversight in to control what was being sold at these locations and concentrations and how much you could sell. Right now, there's no oversight. Unfortunately, you don't know what you're getting when you buy from these places. And we've seen stories in our local community of individuals doing things that they normally wouldn't do. Acting in ways they normally wouldn't. And a lot of that has to do with what potentially is being purchased from these places. When you're buying hallucinogenic candy bars, you're not going to act the way a normal person would, and you're going to do things that can endanger yourself, especially when you're a teenager or a young adult who's brain is not fully formed at that point. And I will also mention that we recently had an arrest over the weekend of a parolee who was found with switchblade knives that were, we believe, sold from one of these establishments, where we also seized the exact same knives that were being sold. So we also have people on parole, criminals with felony convictions that these establishments are also selling weapons to. So like I said, this isn't just about marijuana. This isn't about eradicating marijuana sales in the county. Marijuana sale and possession is here in New York, and if it's done the right way, then it's done the right way. But when it's not, and when it's sold to underage children, or when you're selling controlled substances or hallucinogenics or narcotics or anything else, that is what's not going to be tolerated. So that's all I have. Do I need to choose? Okay, so at this point, we would open it up to questions for the sheriff, myself, or any of the chiefs. Yes, Jim.
Were any of these shops actually legal, or were all of them unlicensed?
None of these shops are licensed by New York State.
Were any of the shops located on what is sovereign land or Akwesasne land? And if so, how was the jurisdiction? How are you guys able to proceed in that?
All of the shops are located in St. Louis County.
None of it was sort of follow up on that. There's no recognition that any of that land is looked at as Mohawk treaty lands.
I'm not going to get into whether there's a dispute about any of that land. That's not for us to decide. That has been ongoing since before I came to St. Lawrence County. When I was an ADA in Franklin County, it's been going on for a long time. What I will tell you is the shops where these search warrants were executed are located in St. Lawrence County. I believe the two were located in the village of Messina. They're not licensed by New York State. And they were engaging in activity that they had no authority to do.
Was there any discussion with tribal council, with the San Ridge Small Tribe about what was going on?
No.
No? Okay. I have one more. The products that were seized there was allegations that potentially they are not clean. Have they been tested yet?
What do you mean not clean?
That they are that they have some kind of impure defect in them, or that there's something, because you spoke about testing, how important that is to know what's being sold. So have they been tested since they were seized?
They were just seized yesterday. So testing, and if you're speaking just to the marijuana that was seized.
All of it,
No, that has not been.
but that's being planned.
That has not been tested. When we talk about the hallucinogenics that are being sold and the psilocybin, that's right on the packaging, and I would have to check with, and the sheriff may be able to answer. I don't know if the tests have been done. So those have been tested and confirmed to have those hallucinogenics, yes.
Okay.
What about fentanyl? I think that, is that what you're referring to, like lights with fentanyl, or you're seeing?
Well, they didn't say it here, but I know that that's been something that's said.
Tap dancing around it?
Yeah.
I'm not tap dancing around it. If we had anything that tested positive for fentanyl at this moment, I can assure you, I would tell you that. As I stand here now, I don't know that that's the case, but like I said, everything that we see certainly has not been tested. What has been tested is enough to lay the charges that have been laid. But all of these things have to eventually be sent to a lab to have proper forensic testing, and then we will know exactly what's in there.
Any of them collecting taxes? Sales tax?
No, none of them.
Are there any other potential criminal investigative arms that are going to come out of this, or further investigations that you could possibly give any information about?
No, there is ongoing Yeah, you can speak to that, Sheriff.
So, yes, as I stated before, this is an ongoing investigation. There's still things that need to be done for this operation that will continue to be done. It's a lengthy investigation that's been going on. You know, it is a covert operation, obviously, for it to be successful. We had many citizens calling and, you know, knocking on our door. Why are you doing something? Why are you doing something? We were doing something long ago behind the scenes. These undercover operations, the drug task force, or, you know, we're not putting it out there on a sign that we're doing these investigations, they won't be successful. So I can understand why the citizens were getting upset and saying, wow, this is going on and right in front of everybody and nothing was being done. Well, there was a lot of things being done. It's just behind the scenes because it's to be successful. That's the way it has to be done. And I understand their frustrations and they should be frustrated. Again, as the DA said, when you're selling minors and kids that don't have that, you know, skills set to make good decisions, and then you add hallucinogen substances and other things in their bodies, that's where it goes wrong. And that's where we just can't tolerate it. So again, to the citizens, this is an ongoing investigation. It will continue. It won't be tolerated. If there's more that open up, we'll look into those shops. This is a continuing thing that just isn't because this operation is done, you know, like yesterday, isn't really done, and it will continue to go forward as our law enforcement community behind us take this very, very seriously.
If the shops reopen, how quickly are you going to respond to that?
Again, when we see shops open, we will do an investigation and we will look into them and make sure they're lawful. If they're lawful, that's great. We'll, you know, if they're doing everything above board, the way they're supposed to do it, then there will be no issues. If they're doing illegal activity, then we will look into them. And if we can investigate it and prove it, we will arrest them. We will charge them and we will prosecute them. So again, this is an ongoing thing where it just will not be tolerated. It's a new law, right? It's new marijuana laws are new. And sometimes we get new laws like this, people take advantage of things. When there's no oversight or it takes a while to roll things out. I understand that. And they'll take advantage of it. But what they're doing is they're taking advantage of the citizens, of their safety. And that won't be tolerated. When you're selling these products for profit, and then someone gets killed operating a vehicle under hallucinogen or maybe suicidal subjects, whatever it may be, that's when we get involved. Law enforcement community. Safety is the number one thing for us. Whatever we do out here, it's the safety of the citizens of this county or the people in the state. That's what it's about. So when we saw this happening, and we saw it a long time ago, we started these investigations, it was all about the safety of the citizens. That's what drives us. That's what drives us all in this law enforcement community, is to keep everybody safe. And when citizens are calling about unsafe acts going on, we will act. And we did, and we will continue to.
Just to follow up on the shops, as you had mentioned, quite often they do open up after the fact. Is there any consideration or provisions going forward to prevent that from happening, so that they don't just continue to pop up and you guys find yourself closing down the same places over and over and over again?
So there are provisions in the law, and there are new provisions being passed. I believe even just recently in Albany involving fines and things like that to make it very prohibitive for these shops to reopen. You know, our concern at this moment is not that. You know, there is a board that has been put in place that is supposed to monitor these things and that has enforcement powers and things like that. And if these places aren't collecting taxes and they're not doing things the right way, that board is supposed to have that oversight and being responsible for shutting down these shops, okay? And they're just starting, I think, to get their feet under them. As you can see, there have been a lot of operations like this in New York City and in other parts of the state. So hopefully they can get that going and do that on their end. You know, as far as we're concerned though, if they continue to violate the law, if they continue to sell the minors, if they continue to sell things outside of marijuana, we will make sure that we are actively involved in dealing with that issue in any way that we can. But New York State passed this law. They passed it quickly. They weren't prepared, I think, for, you know, as the sheriff said, people taking advantage of it because the infrastructure was not in place. They're starting to get that. So hopefully New York State will be able to deal with permanently shutting down these places if they continue to not comply, not get licensed, not collect taxes. We're going to worry about the safety of the citizens of St. Lawrence County and holding these people accountable for any crimes they committed.
The sheriff said when somebody gets killed operating a vehicle under hallucinogens, was there a fatality that was tied to these shops selling psilocybin?
I don't want to speak for the sheriff, but I believe he was speaking as an in general possibility, given the number of DWIs, DWAI drugs that you see. That is always a fear, that is always a concern. When you have these things, whether it's marijuana or these hallucinogenics more readily available to the general public, that is always a concern, that you may see an increase in DWIs or DWAI drugs. And anytime someone operates a motor vehicle, whether it's under the influence of alcohol or marijuana or a hallucinogenic, they run the very serious risk that they're going to hurt themselves or someone else. And it just is it's a great concern to our community always. But when you have establishments that are readily selling things that they shouldn't be selling with no oversight and selling it to anyone, regardless of age, it becomes even more concerning.
Have you guys seen an uptick in DWIs, DWAIs, and some of these motor vehicle related incidents since the opening of these shops?
I would have to go back and run the numbers. I didn't run them for today. I don't want to say one way or another and not be accurate on that.
Was the products, the cannabis and the psilocybin, were those being grown in the area or in New York State? Or were they being sent here from elsewhere?
I can't tell you where the marijuana was being grown. We believe they're sent. Sheriff says they were sent in. I know the candy bars and things like that are packaged, so that would be my assumption.
So for these shops that you talked with yesterday, you go back, they open, has the clock started ticking for them on that, like the $20,000 a day sanction? When does that start? When conviction? Now, if you hit them again?
That doesn't really have, that's really not part of our process. That's part of the marijuana law that was passed and the sanctions that can be imposed. I'm not involved in imposing them. I believe the sheriff is. We're going to leave that to New York State and the marijuana board and tax and finance and any other state agency that wants to come up and handle that, by all means, come on up.
Were there any incidents or any injuries or any non-compliance in any of the arrests or anything like that? Or did all of the arrest warrants go smoothly?
Everybody was safe. There was no incidents. So yes, we conducted 7 search warrants and all went very well. Obviously, law enforcement, that's one of our main concerns, and we were ready for that with manpower and resources. Thankfully, everything went very well and there was no incidents. Okay, well, thank you all for coming today. Thank you very much.
Oh, good.
Busy guy.
Yeah, I read your stuff.
Yeah.
Well, as much as I can for free. Yeah, that still does.